Falava, halo oketa, nisa bulavinaka, kia orana, malo lele, whakalofalahi atu, ta aloha ni, kam na Māori, ia orana, aloha kako, ke se lele, hafa adai, namaste, tēnā koutou katoa. At this stage, I'd just like to ask a member of our learning team charged with serving kura, Les, to start us off this afternoon. Te lava.
Tēnā koutou. Ko rangi e tū ake nei, rāua ko papatuānu ku e takoto maira, kāputa ki waho ko ruau moko. Nā ruau moko rāua ki hina tohu, kāputa ki waho ko manu ongaonga. Nā manu ongaonga, kāputa ki waho me ki ko uetonga. Nā uetonga, kāputa ki waho ko niwareka. Ka puta ki te whaiao, ki te ao marama, ki te ao matapopore, whano, tū maira taku uhi, haumi e, hui e, tā iki e. I ngā iwi e tau nei, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou i runga tonu i te karanga o te rā, me ki ko tēnei wānanga mo te moko. Nau mai, piki mai koutou, aha koa kōwai, aha koa nōwhea, u ke mai o koutou waka ki roto i tēnei poho o te whare e tuake nei, a nei anō te mihi kauake, nā te hono o Hawaii ki a koutou, i runga tonu i te marae kia nei, ko rungo maraero. I tēnei rangi e mihi kauake, ngā āhuatanga e rua ki a koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Uke mai ngā waka ki ro i te poho te whare e tuake nei, e ai ki te kōrero o ene o ngā wahine kai muri iau. No reira, kaore au e toro wā ke te paipa, nā te karaki e te timatanga mai o āku kōrero, he rumaru mo tātou katoa i te rangi nei, no reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Haere rā e hika, te rau kōkonu o mata, te pūrane akai, e takoto whāriki ana te moe ngāro, te moe huri ai e, tū moke te hukarere, te rere hoki o te kohu, kei raro i te maru o pātangata e. No reira apiti hono, tātai hono, ko rātau ngā we mātpara ki a rātau, tau ana ki a tātou e orāne i tēnei wā, tēnā koutou, e hika mā, tēnā koutou katoa, kātau.
Ia, e mō lava ona si lewe i ngā male whawhitai le tua. Mō lona alofa malona angalei. Ua tātou poto mai le nei aso. Te whata alofa atu. I le tātou ainga le nei taiao. O le nei awhiawhi. E mō lava whapito alo whata alofa ia les ma le ainga. Mō le whata alofa i le nei awhiawhi. Also, I want to acknowledge mana whenua, te Aotearoa Ngāti Toa, our iwi in residence, ko rongo whakata. And additionally, I do want to acknowledge the four wahine that we have with us today. Thank you for your energy, thank you for your generosity, and we are really privileged to have you here. And then thirdly as well, I want to acknowledge everybody who has made time to come. We look forward to the discussion, the kōrero and the learnings that we hope to get from this space. So at this time, I'd just like to ask my sisters to join me in Samoan waiata. Whawhetai I le atua, le nata totupu ai, ina wa na lofafua, ya te tato umane, ya pe
It's on. Thank you.
No, thank you. Talofa everyone, I am Rachel Yates of Samoan and Palangi heritage, and I have ties to Vaisala in Sava'i, Samoa. I'm also the curator of Pacific Cultures here at Te Papa, and I'm really humbled to be here to serve and facilitate this discussion. This is a significant moment for us, and as with you all, I'm really excited to hear from our speakers today and learn from their experience of Tāmoko, Makmak, Tāmasini, and Vingia. Today's panel will work by firstly giving an opportunity to each wahine to share a bit about themselves and their practice and their work. This will then be followed by discussion and questions. And at that designated time, we welcome you all to talk story or ask questions and share reflections. Our first panellist is Tāmoko practitioner and artist Pip Hartley of Ngāti Tūwharetoa and Ngāti Raukawa. Pip has been tattooing for over 15 years, following a lifelong passion for art and a desire to continue to connect to her heritage. Benefiting from the tutelage of Te Kura Te Waniko Tūroa, Pip practices with both uhi and tattoo machines and shares ancient symbology through contemporary Indigenous markings. Once in the role of director at Te Karanga Charitable Trust, which runs music and arts programs for at-risk youth, today she is dedicated to Karanga Inc., her own tattoo studio in the heart of Auckland's Karangahape Road, which doubles as an art gallery for established and emerging Indigenous artists. Karanga Inc. aims to be a platform to share knowledge, skills, and cultural understandings. Over to you, Pip. 15.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ngā mihi nui to Te Papa for having us here, and to the mana whenua, also to Rachel and Jackie for bringing this all together, and also to my fellow mana wahine here on the panel. It's a real privilege and honour to share space with you all and all of you guys for coming in today. So I'm completely freestyling this today because I'm not one for like being really organised at PowerPoints and things like that, so I always end up just freestyling, so here we go. My name's Pip Hartley. I grew up in the Hibiscus Coast in a predominantly Pākehā environment. My mama's from, her whakapapa is English, Irish, German, and my dad, he is from Pokora Marae, Tūwharetoa, and Ngāti Raukawa. So he wasn't really brought up around te ao Māori either, and I think he came from that generation where he was embarrassed to be Māori, which kind of was passed down to me in a way when I was young, so I wasn't really in touch with my my whakapapa in a conscious sense back then. So it wasn't until my nan passed away when I was 14 that I got to go home and reconnect to my tūranga waiwai. And that really just opened up doorways for me. Before I even knew it, it was happening. And it really ignited that fire within me to want to reconnect and just that yearning to know more. And so went back to, well, I was still at school, and then I realized that my true passion was art. So I ended up leaving school when I was 16, I think, and went to Hungry Creek Art and Craft School and spent a year there just realizing that, yep, I definitely want to be a full-time artist for the rest of my life. And with that and a passion to want to travel the world as well, and also, of course, learn about my roots, I decided to leave home and move to Te Waipounamu. I guess that's just kind of what happened. Instead of going home exactly to my tūranga waiwai, I went to Te Waipounamu, Aotearoa anyway. So went down there, and I think by putting that out to the universe, I like to say, it kind of manifested my path for me, where I met the right people at the right time, and everything seemed to fall in place. And so that's where I met my mentor, Te Taiha Te Wanako. And I ended up living with him and 2 other tattooists in Hokitika. And so they all basically offered to teach me. And through kōrero, usually like the first question from a Māori is, where are you from? So we figured out that our whakapapa linked together. So here's my whanaunga. And my moko journey started from there, really. And not long after, we went to Borneo to a cultural tattoo convention. And I like to say that's really was my initiation into the world of tattooing, because I was never really exposed to tattooing. I actually never really aspired to be a tattooist. It was more the aspiration of wanting to learn more about my roots and wanting to be a full-time artist and wanting to travel, I think. So once we went there, and it totally opened my eyes to all the other cultures that were practicing and reviving their traditional customs and protocol around tattooing. And after that, we were invited to Europe, and so I got to see a whole different other scene of the world of tattooing, which was more like commercial, I guess. Tattoo conventions in Europe are a lot different to an indigenous tattoo convention in an indigenous country and longhouses kind of thing. So I could really, I got a sense of the polarities of that, and decided from there on that I wanted to delve deeper into the path of indigenous markings, and particularly my own. So and that life happened, and I, like long story short, ended up in Auckland, and got involved with a charitable trust called Te Karanga. And like Rachel was saying, we ran youth programs for youth at risk based on music and art. And I think that's where I guess had more of a passion for like community and creating safe spaces and platforms for artists and musicians and just people in general. And I learned a lot of things in that time, and was also practicing and trying to hone in on my craft as well. And it was an interesting journey, because when I started moko, that was back in 2002. So there wasn't a lot of Wahine moko artists at that time. So it was sometimes challenging, just because, we don't have it. It's not like now where there's a lot more of us and we can things seem to be a lot more open than it was back then. So it's been, I'm probably jumping all over the show here, but I now have an apprentice who, when I first met her, I saw a piece of me in her. And so it's been a really interesting journey sharing with her, because I get to share the things that I really wanted when I was going through my apprenticeship. Yeah. So back to Te Karanga. Sorry guys, jumping all over the show. But after running that space, it was a labour of love, and I really wanted to do all these kaupapa-driven projects, but the challenge was always funding and trying to survive. So I thought if I created this space, Karanga Inc., then the business could run itself, and then I could be free to create projects when I want to do it without having to apply for funding. I could just do it. So that's what I did. And it's been 4 years now, and it's been an amazing journey, and Tyler's been there for the ride as well. And we've been on some amazing adventures and some different Indigenous conventions around the world, and just getting to link with our brothers and sisters from all around. So lots of sharing stories and connecting with people on the journey of the revival of Indigenous tattooing. So it's been awesome. Is that 5 minutes?
Yeah. So lava Pip. We'll have more time to kōrero with Pip, so if you have questions, I do encourage you to ask her, but just listening to what you were saying about travel and the experience in Borneo giving you a really unique insight on what you could do and where you could go with your passion. And then also the way you talk about Karanga Inc., it's obviously been a labour of love and a really exciting place in here in Aotearoa. Yeah, just the sharing, I think, what you gained and wanting to give that back is really apparent in your mahi, so thank you for that. Up next, we are going to hear from Luisa Tora from Kadavu and Suva, and who belongs to the Matai Sau clan. She has worked extensively and continues to do so in the area of human rights in Fiji and the wider Pacific before moving to Aotearoa, New Zealand in 2009. She has appeared in several group shows and curated and co-curated a series of exhibitions that prioritise Indigenous, feminist, LGBTQI+, and Indigenous themes, including Vasu, Pacific Women of Power in Fiji 2008, Wantok in Auckland 2018, and also When Can I See You Again, also in Auckland. A core member of the Vengia Project, this creative research project has a series of exhibitions inspired by Fijian female tattoo. In this image, we see Luisa conclude a year-long process of receiving her wingia. Culturally, the ngia ngusu signifies to the onlooker that full wingia is worn. She stands in solidarity with a free West Papua.
Kia ora, tula, excuse me. Tēnā koutou, Nisambula Vinaka. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Pōneke day. It's so lovely. Every time we come here, it looks like this, and we're like, we should move here. And everyone's like, hey, that's not fun. You're laughing at yourself, but yes. So thank you for this very, very warm welcome. I would like to start off by acknowledging the Vanua, the Whenua that we stand upon, and the Whenua that we stand amongst, past, present, and future. Ngā wā lewa for having us. And all these people who've been working hard behind the scenes, Sean Mallon and Sebastian, congratulations on your book and exhibition. And Jackie Leatemore, and of course Rachel Yates. Some time ago, Sinava I was at Spacklels and she talked about someone needs to be the hedge for all the hibiscus. We can't all be the hibiscus, so I appreciate all this solid support that happens in the background because we get to just come and sit down. But a lot of work has gone into it, so whawhai te lava. Just a quick clarification. Kandawa is my motu, it's where I'm from, and Suva is my hometown, and I thought it was super cute how they put them both in there. So Kandawa is not in Suva, it's a completely separate island. And yes, I moved here in 2009. And before we go on, I always want to acknowledge Julia Mangeo Gray and Vasa Gray and Molly Rangiwa Mikhail. She marked me, and several of the members of the Vengia Project and several other Fijian women are now receiving our winning gear. And we appreciate you always. And Vasa, who stretched for me as well, and her daughter Vasa, and Molly, my partner. And I just wanted to make sure that, again, you get to see this image of receiving my marks, but all the work that went into it before is I think, as much important as a completed body of work. So that's that for now. Did I just press this button? Okay. I've been here before via my mother. 16-year-old mother of Vulukovaki there. She went to school at Samuel Marsden. I was telling them that's about as much as I know about Samuel Marsden, but I feel kind of safer knowing that she led here. She was here before I was, and so we can follow that up afterwards. Before I continue, I've been talking about Matai Sau lately. This is my hereditary title. I belong to this clan. And I've always known that was my tutu vanua, but I hadn't merged it with my practice, I think. Or maybe I was doing it subconsciously. Now, this title, we are so-called hereditary carpenters, I think more like artisans, built the huge nrua, the double-hulled ships. Canoe seems kind of belittling, doesn't it? They're ships. And war clubs, the forks that they lovingly ate brains with. And the description of a person of a certain clan is 3 parts. First, it explains that each person has a title, which has rules as sanctioned, I like the word sanctified as well, by our tupuna. And the third part of the sentence talks about the service that you provide. Itavi, your roles and duties, and that sits better for me creatively and spiritually as a title than artist. So I think we'll do that. So I wanted to explain that so that, and once I had this epiphany, and also being the end of a decade of being in Aotearoa and a practicing artist, it was an opportunity to look back at what I had done to prepare for today, and to see the things that I wanted to keep and things that were not useful for me as an artist and for you as a consumer of art or a viewer or appreciator. So some of these themes came out, and that's what I would prefer to talk about today rather than my artwork. I wanted to talk about, I guess, my kaupapa. So, geez, did I push this?
One more click.
One more click. 2015, you have your first 5 years of settling in and doing the things that you got to do. 2015, I think I really, just starting from there, it's also when I started my marks, isn't it? 2015? 16. In this period of 5 years. I'll press this again. I wanted to share this with you because as with most things indigenous, everything indigenous, you're never there by yourself. And so you'll see me, but then this is what's happening behind the scenes. And I didn't warn Julia, but surprise.
Oh no, I didn't say anything. Okay, on the side.
I think around in this period, and in 2016, as Julie said, when I started receiving my marks, it really, there's no easy way to say it, eh? You have to pull your head in, because now you're not, we were never walking alone, but now I am definitely, I have company. And so when you speak and how you act, like it may not even be external. You're like, oh, there's a nice text, that's nice, and move on. But I'm like, am I presenting myself properly? Did I say that right? As far as to keep in keeping with everything else that I do. And so this really was a time, and I looked at my work as well. So 2015 till now, I realized the theme is community or collectivity. I wrote it down. Communication and collaboration. Those are the 3 strong themes that came through in this period. So I just wanted to move through that. And as we did that, this is taking it back. This is the first time I ever stepped into it and said, I'm doing this art thing. And you see on the left there's Jackie on the left. all younger and bushy, bright and bushy-tailed. Vasa Pacific Women of Power, which was created by, funded by Creative New Zealand, was in Suva. It featured 41 artists from around the Pacific, not just from Fiji. And the reason it has that ridiculous number is because we couldn't say no to people. It was just like, what about this? And we're like, yeah, okay. And then we had 41 artists and writers and performers, and it was just intense. But but that was the real, I think, the beginning of stepping up and putting your money where your mouth is, I think. Anyway. The Vengia Project, which is a collective, as Rachel explained, of women of Fijian heritage, and where I say artists, but several of them are also curators. They are all, Dr. Tarisi Soravundilo is also an academic, but we come together. We all live in different countries, except Margaret and I. Margaret all is Maori Fijian artist who lives in the Te Awemutu and in Tamaki. Tarisi is in Hilo in Hawaii. Dulcie Stewart is in Brisbane, and Donita Hume is in Sydney, and Tuana Monalanga, is the third person who lives in Aotearoa. So we do a lot of our talking online. We spend a lot of time online. And then if we can, we all gather together for exhibitions, if that's what you're doing. And again, this is another thing, like from the 2015 period, that was shaped the direction that I'm headed in now, I think. Definitely inspired and influenced by them all the time. And Choana and Tarisi in particular are I call Choana my Jedi master. They're also our cultural advisors, and it's just amazing. I said to them, I feel like a better Fijian. After every time I talk to you, I feel like a better Fijian. Oh, yeah, can you start a podcast or something? Just call me all the time. And a lot of the work that we do as well always has a community component, because another thing that we do is we say Vengia doesn't belong to us, it belongs to Fijians, and so whatever we find, we share it back out. That's how we work. And I tell you, another thing that keeps you honest is working with children. Because if you're going to tell a kid, you make sure you come correct. And the wonderful thing about children is that they'll immediately tell their friend. So that's my niece at the back there, Nelani, and this here, her friend, she had just got her stencils done. This is at Pacifica Festival. And then this little girl came, she goes, come and get your Vengia. She come in. The design's actually called wedding gear, just so you know. Come and get your wedding gear. So she sits down, and I had just told my niece, did you know that only girls get tattooed in Fiji? And she was like wide-eyed, and I said, and only women are tattooists. Mm-hmm. And as soon as that little girl sat down, she said, did you know that only girls get tattooed in Fiji? Yeah, and women are the tattooists. And I was like, you go tell your girls, that's right. But so I mean, this stuff keeps you real. It keeps you balanced, that's for sure. And it's always wonderful having them around. This is one of my favorite photos in the world as well. That is Phyllis Vale, who is Tyler's daughter. And Tyler sent this to us after they went to One Talk exhibition, and I just love it because I know as artists we talk a lot about so kids can see themselves on the walls, eh? Sometimes I think we need to think that further rather than just flippantly say it. But that for me was like, this is why we do what we do. I mean, I really like reviews, of course, that's nice, and I really like people telling me, because, I have an ego, that's apparent. But if a kid, to see that won my heart, and I think, if with Tyler and Phyllis's permission, use this photo forevermore. Yes. So what were the other things that I wanted to tell you about? I think that's mostly it. Another thing that changed, and it was after this visit to Kia, which is in northern Fiji, that I came back and I told Julia, I was like, I'm ready, and we finished this. And I asked her, and she can verify me up on this one, I asked her to shark hinge my mouth, The shark is my ancestor god, and so I have an affinity for sharks. But I asked her to shark hinge my mouth because we went and we were interviewing people on this island. They have a ngarni vengia, which is where women on their island would go to be marked. And we were interviewing them, and everywhere we went, the kids would follow, which is perfect. That's what you want, because they themselves had sketchy memories. The eldest did, but as the generations have moved on. So every time we interviewed people, the kids were listening. Perfect. A classic Barry Barclay move. He said, don't chase the kids when you're filming. They'll get bored soon enough, but that's how they're learning. And if you're, especially in a Fijian setting where if you have a gathering, it is men around and the decision makers, and women and children will be at the back if they're there at all. But we asked them formally if we might have, when we did our presentation, that we have women and children present because of the nature of the kōrero, and they were more than happy to do that because they saw that it made sense. I think we're getting to the end of this. The other thing of this, I think I've just gathered all the photos I could think of with community and collaboration in it. But it's just provided so many wonderful opportunities and conversations. On the left, I'm with Vo Dance Group. We collaborated with Merula Mbulirua, who's standing next to me. Those are in the stacks at Fiji Museum. And we always take our collaborators through there, so that, because we've been looking at this for ages, but for a lot of people, they don't access this as much. So we're like, come, let's blow your mind. And again, the Vengia project, and just having this community, because I used to talk a lot when I first got here about building a vicarious home. Oh gosh. So we're unlearning art talk. And a wonderful sort of output, I guess, another outcome of the Vengia project is that it brings people together. Like, I may have seen some of these ladies on the right here at different points, but I would never see them all together. And just that is a bank sitting there together, They just talk and it's gold, it's just like. And so, again, I come to this. I wonder if some of her friends, look, it's your sister, Alicia. Another opportunity, this is from When Can I See You Again, and it was just an opportunity to work with queer women of various backgrounds. Even when you work with queer people, sometimes you only work with queers like you. So, it was a great opportunity to get a spectrum of perspectives and dare I say it, races in one room talking about one thing together. So that was at Fresh Gallery, Aotearoa. Again, some footage from Vo in Tamaki a couple of years ago, and I got to work with them as well, and some of the Fijian dancers based here. And we did a segment on, and that was one of the times we started drawing on dancers, and it was so amazing having looked at so many illustrations of wedding gear and women that we hadn't seen it on the body, and it was just amazing to see dancers, to see it activated that way. Like, it was really, like, my hair stood on end. It was so, and they were in liku, so it was, life-changing. Working with different people, again, there's Pati Solomona Tyrell on the right, and we did the shoot for his awesome exhibition, Whaongongo, which I think will be at City Gallery next month. Please go and see it. You can see all his work. But that was awesome to work with him as well. And with Oceania Interrupted, which I've not done for a while, but always collectivity, always collaboration. This is my last slide. At the end of last year, this is by far, I think, the most ambitious project I've taken part in. I decided it would be a great idea that we should create 2 new meke for Aotearoa, in Aotearoa, for Fijians who live here. And, well, so of course you did. And I worked with Choana Monalangi as well. She's in Doni Vudu our charts, so she wrote that. And Alipate Trail, is Ndoni Vudu and Ndoni Meke. So he also writes chants and choreographs Fijian dance, Meke. And we worked with the children of Wesley College, which was also brilliant. And you'll see, this is me being kind of cheeky, like, this is ideal, that you would, this is the ideal point of view. Sitting at the back with the other hedges, supporting the hibiscus. So I think I'll just end it on that, and you can just have a quick snippet of it. So this is at Mangere on the day after Fiji Day last year. Not you.
Kia ora.
Thank you for that really rich kōrero. No, time is not a factor when you are speaking. But thank you for that rich kōrero. There was such a wide range of subjects and themes and communities that you are working with. That was really clear. And I think it was really nice to hear those 3 C's as core parts of your work at the moment: community, collectivity, and communication. And another thing that sort of really stuck out was the transnational nature of the Vingia project and how that's operating for you and how you are using tools in the 21st century to bring back, to remind, to celebrate. So thank you very much. Next, we have an Auckland-based Papua New Guinean Australian mark maker, dancer, filmmaker, and storyteller. And what I'm going to do for Julia's bio is read out a quote that, read out something that she's shared. Admiration for my bubu grandmother. She was strong, beautiful, and hardworking. If only to have this small part of her tapped on my skin is just a small measure of how much I admire her quiet, but in no means silent power, driven to share and inspire pride in our Pacific ways. My belief that no matter how diluted our traditions may become over time, that we can maintain and develop the arts, practices of our unique Pacific cultures. My bubu was tattooed. Her gift to me is what I share with you so you may know the story of our woman. At Julia's request, we will play the beginning of a 2.5-minute clip of her film, and then the film will continue in silence as we hear from Julia. The film is called The Calling, and it was released by Tsunamike Productions in 2018. So if I could just get the AV, please, to start that clip.
Just off the northern coast of Australia, there are lands of the South Seas rarely visited. A people primitive and hostile, impenetrable jungles, gigantic swamps, crude homes infested with flying ants and hordes of mosquitoes. Small wonder that this is a land far beyond the frontiers of romance. It is a strong child who survives. Infant mortality is tragically high in these primitive places. To live is to become immune to disease. The Papuan village is built over the water with one side touching the land, so it cannot be surrounded by enemies from other villages. Cannibalism has so depleted the male population, to whom this fate generally falls, the women greatly outnumber the men. So it is that a male infant receives all the care and crude protection that an ignorant savage can devise. The village will need its men. Women, their life work is to be a wife, one of several wives always. They can propose marriage, and if refused, the man will be severely beaten. Adornment of the skin takes the place of clothes. Here's one who likes a V-neck effect. Belles of the South Seas. Wealthy Papuans bedeck their heads for ceremonial occasions. This colorful bonnet is made of bird of paradise feathers, and it represents a small fortune to the owner. Then there's the warrior type who disdains adornment unless it brutalizes him.
The art of tattooing has many secrets and is usually done here in private. The Gailey people of the Papua section of New Guinea.
Thank you. Oh, I just cut that. Sorry, you probably would have been in the zone. I think I just set myself up to cry in public. So should I do that standing? No, I won't. So why am I here? To talk about Melanesian marks. So if you watch the clip, that the guy was like spot on all levels. Mate, when we found this, the original clip, which is, so Papua New Guinea, our colonisers were, well, it was finally gifted to Australia. And so we had a lot of Australians record, document, and so that particular film was recorded by a woman, very well known. Gosh, Cochrane. Here, I can't even remember her name after I said she was well known, but anyway. But hearing it for the first time, I was just like flabbergasted that was actually what was shared with the rest of Australia, and then ultimately, you know, the world. Thank you, Internet. And so, yeah, it's pretty horrific. So I think, to put it in a nutshell, the work that we do through our Melanesian marks is literally placing our old people's thinking back onto our women's skin, and by doing that, we literally, what do you call it? We stop whitewashing ourselves. So I have to be really careful that I don't say anything rude. Where? Someone's telling me do it. So we don't continue to do that. And what I love about living in New Zealand and doing this work, oh, that's my village, but anyway. What I love about this work is that we are living in Auckland, my family, and we're looking at like a multitude of women from completely different backgrounds, whether they're from Mexico or Germany or in the Oceanic region. We can't do this work in Australia, we can only do it in New Zealand, because there is an acceptance here that you don't have to justify who you are every 5 seconds. You're not asked, are you Papua New Guinean enough? Or are you Māori enough? Or are you Samoan enough, even though you're not Samoan? I just happened to look at you. But I think you can have that conversation in a safer space here in Auckland. No, we're not in Auckland, we're in Wellington. My bad, too many plane flights. So yeah, it's just about placing our old people's thinking back onto our skin. And there's so much to talk about, but and in 5 minutes I don't even know where to start. So I thought that I would share this, and I was going to cheat and just play it for the full 5 minutes that I was given. But I realised that maybe that's not the right thing to do. So basically, my personal journey is I am a dancer first. And we use whatever tool we have, whether it's weaving, whether it's poetry, whether it's photography, whatever, to tell our story. And our story is always about who we are. And old to new old, that's literally what we do. That's the whole motto of everything we've ever done. So you take what's old, how our old people thought, the practices they did, and we make it new old. And I think I came into that understanding when I used to think of this dance. So I'm from Mekeo, Central Province in Papua New Guinea. And I'd learnt this dance from my grandfather, my bubuman. And he said, everyone knows about this dance, uvala. So I used to think, this is traditional. This is our old dancing. And it wasn't until, it was years later, and he'd actually passed away, and I had learnt that this traditional old preserved dance was in fact at the time contemporary, because why would you create something that our old people did but didn't reflect who you were today? It made no sense. And so that's when I learnt that everyone right now, what we're practicing, what we do right now, in 20, 40 years' time will be traditional, because that's how Balangi look at us. We've got to put everything into these boxes and whatever. So traditional work, I just reject that. It's our old people's thinking. And then today what we do is new old. And then my daughter already, my son, they're 16, 17 years old. They look at what I do and it's old. And because they're the new old, it's kind of that simple. And so I think with our revival, with our marks, that's the really, that's where we need to start actually questioning whether or not you are thinking as me as the solo person, everything that affects me and how I live. We need to reject that, because how we used to live was a we. You never thought of yourself alone, because how many of you have family where you just go, I'm going to do this, and then you pretend that nobody else matters? I don't think so. Jand will come flying for your head. Like, it doesn't happen that way. And so I think today the only way to sort of decolonize how we practice these marks is like what everyone's literally been saying, is the collective. It's how you, as a cross, how you make these marks. And so for us, when you come to be marked, you don't say what you want. We choose what it is and where it goes, because they are marks of transition. And so you need to walk into the space and let go, because you can't know everything. It's not about you. It's not about what you choose. It's about what your women and all the people before you and all the people after you, what they choose for you. And that's the way you connect, and that's what these marks are today. And so the revival for me is less about what the design, the end product, and more about the process and how that ends up with your end product, your design. And so, I don't know. And then I'm just going to be really cheeky, because it's been in my brain to end, because I don't want to talk forever, which is really possible, because I hate talking. Can't you tell? So my thing is for women. I honestly believe marks started with women. I don't think they started with men, mainly because men had different roles. They were doing different things. So when you hear in that video footage and he says, there were no men, of course there weren't any men in that region, because they were on boats. They were on their Hiri Lakotoe voyages. They were doing stuff, and the women were at home. And so the women were marking. When this amazing, when we made this calling, we made it for the Casablanca Biennale in Morocco in 2018. And it was a maternal lens exhibition curated by Emma Tavola. I have to remember these things, because you've got to say that stuff. But going to Morocco meant that I saw and learnt about Amazi women that mark. and learning about their designs and their placement, it's the same. You can see the connections all the way through, and it's always about women, and it's always women and diamonds, and like there are so many connections that actually shows you how women have been the foundation for life. I mean, that's a no-brainer, but people need reminding these days. Hello. But it's that thing. So my little put it out there, see what you reckon comment is, if you have your chin marked, if you have this opening marked, the other opening needs to be marked also. You can't have one without the other. Yeah. That's what I'm going to end it with. Thank you.
Amen.
One opening to the other. Malo lava, Julia. I think you should talk more and more every opportunity you get, because we're learning so much. And, you know, I've been watching a lot of the footage in the lead up, and a lot of Julia's work in the lead up to today. And yeah, you make us cry in lots of different spaces. So please don't do that anymore today. But it's really important stuff, and I love the challenge that goes out there. And just after researching the amazing panel today, it's made me do a lot of thinking and reflexivity as well. So malo lava to you all, but thank you again, Julia. Our last speaker today is Taila Vai'au, who's an artist and Tatau practitioner of Samoan and Pakeha descent. She hails from the villages of Salea Aumua, Aleipata, and Safune in Savaii. Taila has a long-standing passion for all forms of Pacific art. Thus, it was met by a calling from her family and community to take up Tatau. Graduating in Fine Arts from the Elam School of Fine Arts and completing her master's thesis at the University of Auckland, Taila researched Samoan tattooing with a focus on its history and development within the diaspora. Currently also based at Karanga Inc., Taila has been tattooing for over 10 years and recently been working with traditional tools, learning from tufunga su'a, sluape, alaiva'a, petelo. Whawhitai lava, Taila.
Whawhitai lava, malolo soifua, whatalofa atu. Good afternoon. Why do I have to be last? Okay, it's hard to follow all of these amazing women. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, sisters, for sharing space. Happy International Women's Day.
Yeah, that's why you were last.
I'm Taila Vai'au. Thank you for that introduction. That pretty much covers all the basics. My villages, where I come from. Shout out Alepaka, anyone with Safune roots in the house. My grandfather came to New Zealand from Sāmoa in the 1950s and settled in Wellington. I'm second generation New Zealand-born Samoan, also born in Wellington. So I'd like to acknowledge all of our ancestors who made it possible for us to be here today and who walk with us in all that we do. I'd also like to say whawhitai tili lava to Te Papa, to Jackie, to Rachel. I know everyone's thanked you, but you guys are amazing. Thankful to be here and honoured to be able to contribute to this important talanoa. So not unlike Pip and Julia, my sisters, I never really set out to be a Tatau artist specifically, but it's become a way for me to connect with my own heritage and to serve my family and my community. So I was drawing and painting from a very young age. I'd always been into art. That was my thing. I was also a very proud white Samoan, despite often being told, "Oh, you don't look Samoan." I grew up with that not being much of an issue and had a really strong sense of self and interest in my cultural heritage. And in terms of the tattoo side of things, like my father is heavily tattooed. So that was just sort of a part of my life, my environment growing up. It's quite normal in our household. It wasn't until I went to high school that I started to look into Samoan Tatau. I had family members, because I was drawing a lot of the patterns and stuff, so I had family members and friends, and even my maths teacher asked me to design a Tatau for him. And then, you know, it went deeper than the designs. It's like, well, what's the history? What's the meaning behind everything? And I started really researching into where it came from, and the significance, the cultural significance. So from high school, yes, I went to Elam, and a lot of the artwork I was making and the research I was doing was relating to Tatau culture and identity, representation, being in the diaspora, being, you know, urban identity. How do we connect back to where we're from? And yeah, still designing tattoos. And I developed a relationship with tattoo artist Roger Engerton of Roger's Tattoo Art in Wellington. Shop still open on Cuba Street. Roger did my dad's first tattoo when he was 15. He's got in a lot of trouble for that one. And he was also the artist of choice for a lot of my family members. So a lot of my dad's family still reside in Wellington. So I was designing pieces for my family, and they were taking them to Roger to be tattooed. So he became familiar with my work. There he is. In 2008, that's where this photo's from. I was in Wellington, and he was tattooing a design I'd done, and I'd finished Elam, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, as you do. And I was talking about starting tattooing, and he goes, "Yeah, put some gloves on." I was like, "What?" And so this is my first time ever using a tattoo machine, thanks to Roger. And he gave me a lot of guidance on how to get started, and yeah, he's a big part of my journey. He passed away in 2015, but I'd just like to acknowledge him, and especially being here in Wellington, it's important to acknowledge his contribution to my development. Yeah, so from these teachings, you can go to the next one. I went back to Auckland, and I got the equipment I needed, which was hard back in those days. You couldn't buy tattoo machines on Trade Me like you can now, which is a little bit scary. So yeah, I got the equipment I needed thanks to my dad. This is my dad. And I started practicing on him. So he was my guinea pig. He was a very willing guinea pig, so thank you to Dad. And I'm largely self-taught, and it was through a lot of trial and error, to be honest. In the early days of my family members that grew me into the artist that I am today. And if it weren't for those early people that entrusted me with their bodies, those crazy people, I wouldn't be here. So yeah, I've got a lot of love for all those people that entrusted me in those early days. So I've been tattooing with Masingi, with machine, for 11 years now. Here's just a few images of some recent work. I work freehand. Each piece is custom designed to represent the person's culture, heritage, family, life events, whatever story they're wanting to tell. So, you know, in terms of process, we talk a little bit about style to a degree, but it's generally guided by where on the body it's sitting, what's being represented. It's about the talanoa and allowing what's inside to come to the surface. Because the Pacific as well, you know, we're so interconnected, it's been necessary for me to understand patterns from other islands, being in Auckland or Wellington or wherever, you know, with like cultural melting pots. So there's lots of connections with the Pacific or mixed cultural heritage, and sometimes people want those things represented in the one piece. So my background in Pacific art history and connections I've made with other artists and cultural practitioners from around the Pacific has informed a lot of the contemporary work I do. It's really important for me to understand the meaning and the significance behind anything that I'm working with, and that this is communicated to the person wearing the marks as well, because sometimes that conversation might be left out, and it's really important that the meaning's passed on, because that's how our stories are maintained and passed on to the next generation. So that's a big part of what I do. Talking about the collective, I see my work as being largely driven by the community. It was my friends and my family and the people who asked to receive work from me that encouraged and pushed me towards learning customary Samoan Tatau. I'd often get asked if I was going to learn, and I'd say, no. Sometimes I'd get told, yeah, you should learn. So yeah, at first I thought, no, it's not my place, you know. But after hearing it enough, or after being told enough, your thinking slowly starts to change. And then I had the opportunity to ask Suluape Alaiwa'ape Telo in 2011 if he would teach me. And to my surprise, I was fully prepared for a no. To my surprise, he said yes. And he gifted me one of his ao. And so from 2011, it's been sort of a slow journey till now to learning the traditional tools. When I asked him, I was pregnant and enrolled in my master's thesis because, you know, we're women and that's what we do, just do all the things at once. So I had my babies and I wrote my thesis, but that was always in the back of my mind, working with the tools and the commitment that I had already made just by asking, you know, had to eventually be fulfilled. So yeah, an important part of that journey was receiving my malu. You know, if you're going to be working with this marks, then you should wear the marks as well. And that was a whole process for me coming to that point, being not full Samoan, being New Zealand born, and all the things that we go through, thinking that we're not enough or am I enough? And yeah, and in the end, it was just a whole like timing situation, person, place thing, and it all worked out. And it's a really beautiful experience in Sāmoa with my auntie as my soa, and that has been a catalyst for so many things going forward. So, you know, you receive these marks and it really sets you on a certain path. So that's been a really big part of moving forward. Yeah. So where I'm at now, I've been working with the ao for about a year now. I've been making the tools and stretching and working towards this point longer than that. But actually, you know, making the marks, working with the ao for about a year. It's still very early days for me, so it's kind of like a bit scary to like sit here and talk about it, but hi, here I am. But yeah, I just like to make it clear that I'm still an apprentice in this sense, and I've been working with machine for over 10 years, but I'm still very much an apprentice of the ao, and I don't consider myself any sort of authority on Samoan Tatau. But yeah, I'm open to sharing it. And it's important for me that going forward I proceed with respect to those that have come before me and acknowledge all those tūwhunga tātatau that have kept this mea sina alive for thousands of years. Yeah, tawhitai lava.
I'm just getting through.
Oh, yeah, that's my dad, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Just one last one. So that's my dad on the left, and that's work with the ao, and he's still being my guinea pig. I love that guy.
Thank you, Tyler. I think it was really awesome for us to hear sort of the life journey that's associated the practice for you, and a real motivator and encouragement, especially considering the New Zealand-born population of Samoans that are growing, the urbanised location of that population, and those questions, the mixed heritage of that population, and the continued questions around enough, are very real conversations that many young Pacific people all over the world are having on a daily basis. So thank you very much for sharing your journey with us today. I did prepare a lot of questions, but I think in the interest of time and also allowing everyone to share either questions, commentary, remarks, all is welcome to this space. So we do have some microphones that will be coming around. So please, now is our time for discussion, and I really do encourage us to take advantage of having this awesome panel with us today, whawhitai lava. So we'll take questions. Thank you.
Have a big round of applause.
should we stand?
Yes, please, just so we can see you, that's all.
Bulavanaka. I was born in Sāmoa, but I'm from Papua New Guinea descent as well as Fiji descent. I think my question is, how do you get over that intergenerational like embarrassment and feel enough to get the markings? I only speak very few words of Kiwi, which is my mother's language, and only a few words of Fiji as well. And I moved to New Zealand when I was very young, so I cry every time I watch that video that Julia made. I've watched it many times because of the shame that I know my abre, my ancestors have felt. But how like I understand you guys, you beautiful Wahine, went on your own journey to get over that. How do you do it? Because I'm still doing it. Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, you just do it.
It's your blood right. You don't have to justify yourself to anyone. Just do it.
I think that the only reason, not so much commenting on the discussion about being enough, because I was only ready to be marked after we'd been home. We did the first exhibition was in 2015, and it was in Auckland at St. Paul Street Art Gallery. But then we were always cognizant of doing this outside of home. And we took the show home and we did a formal presentation to the Tuinandi, and then presented our work and introduced ourselves. And then we went to Suva and staged the exhibition at Fiji Museum. And it was only after we had gone home that I felt ready to be marked. And I'd not had so much the doubts, I just knew that I wasn't ready. And yeah, so I mean, it doesn't quite give you that bullet, like one-shot answer right now, but I think that I'm not sure if it comes with age or if it's, I think you should spend a lot of time talking to Julia. Definitely. Yeah, and it really helps to have big sisters. I'm like the eldest. I'm going to have a big sister, but I do have two older half sisters, but we didn't grow up together. But it does help collectivity because you're not by yourself. You never move by yourself, but it's so nice to reach out and touch that person who you know has your back. So I say half jokingly, but I definitely spend more time talking to Julia. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah, get some coffee. She drinks a lot of coffee.
I do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that helps you a lot, but I think that that has helped me in Aotearoa.
Yeah, I've found with Wahine before they receive their moko kauai, or they're like, once they're ready, it's really an inner calling, as they've like gone through everything possible scenario in their mind, like why they shouldn't and why they won't, until they get to the point they're just like, well,
It's time.
It's time, yeah. It's time. And like for me personally, like I still have that dialogue going on in my own head, like, because a lot of people ask me, when you're going to get your kauai? And for me, it's a real personal thing of, I want to learn my reo fluently, like at least more to like conversational level, so that when like the kuia comes up to me and speaks to me in the reo, I can answer her like confidently. And that's my own personal thing. Like, I don't expect any other wahine to get to that level of reo before they receive their kauai. But that's just my own thing. And I will feel so proud of myself once I get to that point, which hopefully is sooner than later. Because it's a journey, as we know, for those that didn't grow up with the reo. So yeah, it's really personal, and it's like whenever you can go through and let go of all of that chitter chatter in your mind that's telling you that you're not ready or whatever, then the time will come. And take that time and just do it.
Yeah.
Questions? Tahalofa. I
Really lovely to listen to your talanoa today. I have a question for Tyler and Julia. I'm really interested in what it is like to move as a woman from into traditional Tatau, when it has always been, since the twins anyway, a male preserve. And then I want to ask another question. Am I allowed to? Yeah? Okay.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Please start. No, as a Papua New Guinean, the twins are after us. So as a Papua New Guinean, as a Melanesian woman, it is a woman's practice. And so it's been really interesting to see how much, those divides that have been put on us, sort of dictating how we're meant to behave or think or whatever. But I think working into this work, it's not actually something I wanted to do. I was a dancer, but you can't actually separate dance and our marks. You can't separate them. They work together just the same as you can't separate the dance from your body. And you can't. We don't do the. I mean, people have their roles and their jobs, but you don't pull it all apart and say, okay, so today that's dance, and then you be the musician and you be we're everything. And so I think moving into I didn't want to do this work. Anyway, we won't complain. But I've accepted it now that that's the work that we have to do. And I also understand that, it just needed to happen. But when you frame it in the way that you framed it, that is looking at it as if it started with the twins, and it does not. It starts before that. It's much larger than just that story and this region, because there is also, in this region, there is also Melanesia, there is also Micronesia, and these are terms that are given to us, and we didn't do that. We didn't divide and say, the water connected us. I mean, isn't that a peli haofa? So no. As a woman, it's easy to move into this space because it makes sense. It's not easy to actually pick up the tools and teach yourself when men say that they'll help you and then they don't. That's been a lot of fun. Really, that's what I'll call you up on straight away. It can't just be about the twins. It's far more.
I apologise for that. I should have qualified it by saying Samoan tattoo, because I know that we got our tatau from our Fijian cousins, and thank you for that. Yeah.
Your turn.
Thanks.
We did this a lot, eh?
Reject the question and then give it to me. Okay, there you go. So I'll just start off by saying the twins. For those that maybe don't know the oral history of Samoan Tatau, is Taima and Tila Whainga, the Siamese twin goddesses who brought Tatau to Samoa and then gifted it to the men. So in terms of working in this space, in terms of a feeling of what I'm doing, it feels right. It feels like things are coming full circle. Physically and logistically and all those other things, it's difficult, but what has made a huge impact is that I've had the support of Surape Alewa Petilo and his son as well, especially Paul Jr. and Ata. And having that backing, I guess, has made the wider community more accepting of what I'm doing, and especially my family as well. You need it's a whole village. It's not just me. I'm the one doing the work, but it's not just me. So, yeah.
Are there other women, Tyler, in Samoan Tatau who are working traditionally?
Did you say, are there any other women?
Are there any other women in Samoan?
There's no other
Tatau?
women of Samoan heritage
Just her.
working traditionally at this point. But I hope that this is like me opening space and that more women come through.
Yeah,
because
bravo,
there's
you
definitely...
are queen.
Yeah. I love
Thank you.
I love her. Oh, this is great. Do we have other questions on the floor? Sorry, I can't quite see the shadows.
Good. No questions.
Oh, Sean Mellon,
Damn it.
Senior Curator of Pacific Cultures and Curator of Tatau Exhibition currently.
At this point, I'm just holding the mic, Rachel.
Oh, my
But
bad.
I do have a question if no one else has one. I was talking to Julia last night and she told a wonderful story about why she doesn't tattoo with the lemon thorn from her, from the practices of the women of her area. Julia, do you want to tell us why you don't go for, the indigenous tools and what
Yep.
that means for your work?
It kind of goes to the old to new old. So lemon thorn is when we were talking about, we'd talk to our old women and their memories of the pain of the thorn was, like it was trauma. They were holding trauma in their bodies. And when I realised that one area you'd mark with the thorn, and I mean, they were masterful, they were amazing how the lines were so straight and it's block work. It's really, really thick. But they would go over the same area 3 times with thorn. And so to do that, I mean, that's what they had. But I saw in my own village, the thorn was then replaced with a new material, and the new material were sewing machine needles. So they're quite thick at the top and quite strong. And so they just adapted the thorn to the sewing machine needle. And it was easier to work with. And so that's what they were using. And so I know for a fact that it's really important to revive the old tools, and I understand that. But when it comes to moving a practice forward in the now, I know our old women, if they came across machines, I know that they would adjust, because why would they stay there? What's the point there? You move. This is new. Oh my gosh. And we adapt, and we our headdresses used to be made, the feathers would be put into like the coconut, the sinet together. Cardboard came along, so why would you keep using the harder material? You would adapt. And so that's why I'd like to sort of work in that area, but it can't be the main way I work, because it's a different world. And people and pain, our pain thresholds are not the same. I know women have higher pain thresholds than men, but a lot of the work, and I'm pretty certain you're actually teaching people to deal with pain and breathing. And if I was to introduce the lemon thorn and travel internationally, if they didn't take it off me in customs, I don't think I'd get a lot of work done. Because then they'd have to come back to me, because we'd have to go over it again 3 times. So I don't know, that's kind of what we were talking about. So sharing is caring.
We have a question down the back. Thank you.
Nisambula Vanak, everyone. I wanted to ask Pip a question with regards to your practice as a creative entrepreneur. Are there any areas where your cultural integrity as a Tamoko artist is compromised because of your demands as a business owner?
Good question. Wow. Just trying to think of any situations in particular. Well, not really, because if someone came and asked me for something in particular and it was against my kaupapa or my moral beliefs or go against, my own integrity, I would just say no. So that's happened sometimes when people have asked for things, or like when people come in asking, and well, just being uneducated, I guess, because a lot of people come in wanting, like, they say Māori, well, they say Maori, or some other form of Māori, and I guess a lot of them have been like from Europe or somewhere out of the country, and they come in like having an image of, say, The Rock, or some like Samoan piece, or Sunny Bill, you know. Completely have no idea that that's definitely not Māori, it's not tā moko, yet they want that. And so then it's an opportunity to educate them. And there's a lot of that goes on, and there's a lot of, you know, cultural appropriation that we see, particularly in Europe and like overseas conventions, where people just feel entitled to take certain patterns and straight up copy things, you know. So it is challenging in those times, because you can try and educate like whoever comes across your path or whatever, but to change a whole, the multitudes of people, you know, is really difficult. And that's something that we as Indigenous people always try and talk about when we get together, you know, trying to figure out solutions as to like how we can educate the masses, you know, and actually create some kind of change in that respect, because it's just diluting our own cultures in a respect, you know, sometimes. Did I even answer the question then? Okay, good. Was that Emma?
That was, yes.
Hi, I just wanted to take the time to say thank you to the Mana Wahine for participating and being in this space, because it's one thing for a space to be created, it's another thing to have people that are willing to take part in that, and that can be very hard to find. I'm thankful to be here and to learn and to be able to listen and to know some of the panel, because one of my goals before I even became a father was to be the last male head of my family, and I've been blessed with 3 daughters. And as a result of that, it's very important for me to always be listening and learning, because my lane and my space is different than what my girls will have as Samoan women. And it's important to know how to share in that journey without taking over. So thank you.
I love her.
So, final comments, and then okay, I do, if you're up to it again, Sean, to just give us sort of any feedback or a debrief from your perspective before we are going to close off with our Reverend Tavita, who is also here. But before going over to Sean, I do as well want to tautoko what this gentleman just shared with us, and to actually have you come. It's very generous from your end, and I feel the urgency that's there in these spaces, and sort of everything that I was thinking of around identity, around Polynesian centricism, the individual versus the collective, those have been brought up in this kōrero today. And I can't say how lucky we are and fortunate to have it, and grateful that it is streamed as well. And working in this space, I feel like that's a taonga. And as you say, you know, next time we come together, or there's more interest and there's more people. But ultimately, thank you for picking up the tools, and thank you for your mahi.
Okay.
As a Te Papa person and as a curator, I guess I just want to acknowledge what you just said, Rachel. I think that is acknowledgement enough. My response to the panel on this special day, Women's Day, on a really busy weekend here in Wellington, is that I'm just grateful that you've shared the stories of your work with us. I mean, I heard last week that a community person said when things come to the museum, they are dead and they have no life. When I think a place like Te Papa, our place, can breathe life and sustain something, even when it's not physically in our space. We have images of Tatau, tattooing. We have the tools and other artifacts that are associated with the practice. But today, there's all of us here, and many of us I can see are marked and tattooed. And we're listening here for the last hour and a half to these wonderful practitioners of an art form that's so special. So sometimes the museum doesn't have to have everything in a drawer in a cupboard. Sometimes it can be a place where people can come together and carry the marks in and out of here. And when you hear the kōrero, when you hear the stories, it brings life to them. So I'm very grateful that you've all come here today to give our guests some attention and to learn a little bit more about what they do. And I'm really struck by the tensions and challenges that they face. It can affect our relationships with our loved ones. It can connect us to the wider world in very positive ways as well. But it's hard work, and I'm very grateful that these women are at the forefront of making Tatau meaningful for contemporary people. So that was just another acknowledgement, I guess, but thank you to Rachel and Jackie for bringing us all together in this space. Thank you to Papa Stuff, and thank you all of you as well. That's my reflection.
Thank you all for stepping into that sacred space, because for all of us here, certainly for the Samoan women, most of us here have been marked by men. So to see our own women step into that space, absolutely claim it, because that is our future. That is all of our daughters are coming into that space. So I just want to say thank you very much. It's been fantastic listening to you all today. And we all, those of us who are marked, wear this with great pride and great responsibility. Thank you.
tētai wahine I awa na kakao waka o mata tuku na katoa I ala ni rau ki papa taurukai te tētai.
It is with much humility and humbleness that I stand on. I made the unfortunate error of sitting next to the Reverend, and he's just asked me to speak on behalf of our Samoan community to thank our panel, Rachel, Jackie, Sean, and how wonderful it is to see that we have come a full circle, that the twins who swam from Fiji with the message to let the men tattoo the women instead of women doing the tattooing. We have a daughter in our midst who is taking the ao again and tattooing it the way it was always done. Tatau is the word, Polynesian word where tattoo comes from. And it's interesting to hear the ao. The English word owl comes from owl. So when you get tattooed and you get owl, you say owl. Yeah, that is the Samoan word. But just on behalf of the Samoan community and certainly the Wellington community, we want to thank the panel. Wonderful kōrero today. And yeah, and I mean, if I had my way, I would rather a man had tattooed my wife. So I mean, a woman had tattooed. So wonderful to see that full circle is coming around. Thank you, everybody.
That's right.
And so we say our prayer. Creator God, God of Aotearoa, New Zealand, God of the Pacific and God of the world, we acknowledge you as our God, and we are your people. We acknowledge our women. We acknowledge their gifts, their wisdom, and their contribution. They are our rock. And so we ask for your blessing upon our panel through their work. Bless them as they go forth. And bless all the women here today and all the women of the world. May they be blessed with all your gifts and your wisdom so that they themselves can be the rock of their families and their communities. And so may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all now and forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Malo. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm still